Johnny Talk Sports here with my Week 6 college football predictions. Last week was another strong week, 8-2 overall, plus 2-0 on the bonus picks. So that adds up to 10-2. Really strong week. I'm hoping to carry that stride into Week 6. After a bad Week 3, I've responded really well with good weeks 4 and 5. Let's try to make it 3 in a row. Now this week, I'm not as confident as I was the most recent 2 weeks. I feel like either I'm going to get all these right or I'm only going to get 3 of these right. I feel like we're going to not see anything in between. I'll even make that bold prediction right now before we even get started with anything. I'm either going to go 10-0 on these picks or I'm only going to get 3 of them right. So let's get right to this. We're starting off with a Thursday night game. Number 17 Louisville taking on number 24 NC State. And I think this is one of the games this week that can go either way. But I want to pick Louisville in this one. I've got to give an edge to Louisville a bit, even though it's on the road. In fact, here's an interesting statistic. Louisville is 1-8 against ranked opponents ever since joining the ACC conference. So history and numbers are not on Louisville's side. However, the majority of these 1-8 opponents have been bowl games, they have been Florida State, and they have been Clemson. None of these affiliate with NC State. So I'm picking Louisville in this one. Although if NC State won this game, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. Like I said, this is one of the games this week that can go either way. But I'm giving the edge to Louisville because Lamar Jackson has emphasized himself so far as more of a passing quarterback this year than a running back in his Heisman campaign last year. So I'm giving the edge to Louisville for that purpose. Next matchup, number 4 Penn State versus Northwestern. Now Northwestern kind of made Wisconsin a little bit nervous in the first half and kind of towards the end of that fourth quarter, taking it to within one score. And Penn State coming off a dominating victory against Indiana. Saquon Barkley starting off with a kick return for a touchdown. I feel like if Northwestern can challenge Penn State, if they can force somebody else to win the game other than Saquon Barkley, I think they got a shot. If they can keep Saquon Barkley out of the end zone multiple times, Northwestern's got a shot to win the game. Kind of like Iowa. They didn't necessarily force Saquon Barkley to have to win the game. They forced Trace McSorley to have to win the game through the air. Basically, when Trace McSorley has to win a game without Saquon Barkley, it's almost doom. And just think about how close that 4th and goal play, that pass, how close it was being tipped. Literally inches. That could easily be the difference. Like this much, like this kind of close. About maybe 2-3 inches. Could be the difference. That could end up being, if Penn State goes undefeated, it could be the difference between them making the playoffs and them possibly missing it without one loss to Iowa. But still, if they can force Saquon Barkley out of this game and forcing Trace McSorley to win this game through the air, I think Northwestern's got a shot. But unfortunately, I don't see this happening, especially with the way that they just melted down in the second half of last week's game against Wisconsin. I'm picking Penn State to win this game, but maybe not by as much as people think. I'm going to say Penn State wins by 14 points. Pretty accurate of a number. Next matchup, Ole Miss versus Auburn. Now this honestly could go either way because Auburn has not proved to be the consistent team over the years. However, their offense has gotten really stronger every week ever since that 14-6 loss to Clemson. Ever since they gave up 11 sacks against Clemson. That Auburn offense looked really strong. Jarrett Stidham looks like he's finding open receivers, dominating against Mississippi State. I think Auburn continues this streak. I think with Auburn's offense getting stronger and stronger, it just feeds off the whole team. In fact, if Auburn were to make kind of a, let's just say hypothetically, if Auburn made a run to the college football playoff, which I don't know if they will, there's still a lot of season left, we're only in October, but if they were to win out, I'm looking at that Mississippi State game as kind of the season changer for Auburn. I know they won 2 games prior to that, but I just still think that this Mississippi State game, if Auburn were to make a run, that would probably be the game-changing season. That's when Jarrett Stidham got more confident. Now, next game, number 13 Miami versus Florida State. Now, Miami's coming off a dominating victory against Duke on the road, and Florida State is coming off a narrow escape against Wake Forest. Honestly, signs would say to pick Miami, Florida, correct? wrong, and here's why. I just feel like Florida State has that momentum now. Now that they have that win under the belt, they got the confidence back. It may not have been the prettiest of wins, but Wake Forest was undefeated going into that matchup. And I feel like a win like that, it builds confidence to your team. And plus with Florida State being at home crowd, knowing that they're not 0-3 to start the year, knowing they still have some season left, they could still make a run. I believe they've announced this week that they are wanting to reschedule their game against Louisiana Monroe, I think it was, whoever their week 2 opponent was supposed to be. Knowing that they have some season left, I think Florida State is going to win this matchup. I feel like behind this home crowd, the defense looked really improved from the NC State game. I feel like if Florida State can run the ball, they can run between the tackles. I think Florida State can win this game. We haven't seen much out of Miami playing productive teams yet. I know Duke was unbeaten, but Duke is kind of a different animal than Florida State is, to tell you the truth. And NC State is actually a good team, even despite losing to NC State at home. NC State's a pretty strong team. I mean, NC State was probably 1 or 2 plays away from being an undefeated team right now, possibly in the top 15. Example, their special teams get up the opening kickoff against South Carolina. So maybe 1 or 2 things go differently in the NC State-South Carolina game. And we're probably talking about Louisville and NC State being the game of the week. So Florida State's not a bad team either. Their 2 losses have been to Alabama and NC State. And I think Florida State, now that they have that win, it's confidence. That's almost a confidence builder win. And I'd like that to continue. I think Florida State wins 27-24. Next, LSU versus number 20 in Florida. LSU's coming off an embarrassing loss to Troy. But Troy's not a team to mess around with. They only lost by 1 possession to Clemson last year. And Florida, they've had some lucky plays over the last couple of weeks. The Hail Mary against Tennessee, the missed field goal at the end of the game by Kentucky, and that little kind of that tip ball when they were only up by 7 against Vanderbilt. So do we see magic in Florida again this year? Eventually the luck's going to run out. At least only Gators fans would hope it doesn't run out. But I don't think their luck's going to run out this week. I feel like Florida doesn't really need any luck. I just feel like LSU is just kind of a little bit broken right now. A blowout loss by Mississippi State, struggle win against Syracuse, and a home loss to Troy. I just feel like LSU is kind of a broken team. There's talk about Ed Odron being fired, which is, what's the point of that? Almost like half the coaches in the SEC are on the hot seat, it looks like. I swear, man. I swear, half the coaches in the SEC are on the hot seat right now. At least that's what it feels like. It's only October. There's still 2 months. There's still 2 months of football left. Give it to the end of the season, then we'll talk about hot seats and stuff. But I'm going with Florida in this one. I just feel like Florida's offense has really improved over these last 2 weeks. I'll even go with 3. Despite leaving some points off the board against Tennessee with that long touchdown run, but it got knocked out at the 1-yard line, Florida's offense has improved ever since that Michigan game. So I'm picking Florida to continue that momentum, especially with the home crowd being in the swamp. I think this has Gators by 14 victory all over it. So I'm going with the Gators. Number 1 Alabama versus Texas A&M. Now, I don't still want to pick this game because why am I picking against my own team for the 3rd year and for the 3rd time in a row? Well, here's the thing. There's a difference between picking with the heart and picking with the brain. Picking with the brain obviously gets you the most. You can't just pick with your heart every single time. You got to think realistically. Texas A&M has no defense. Struggled against South Carolina most of the game. In fact, probably the whole game because it was only 24-17. So if you're only going to beat Alabama, they're going to have to play nearly perfect football. You could probably have one mistake, but your defense better bail you out. That's why Clemson beat Alabama last year. Clemson had one mistake early in the second half of the national title game, but their defense bailed it out and held them to a field goal. If you force Alabama to kick field goals, you got a shot to win, but you also got to score touchdowns. Despite Alabama going on the road in a hostile environment, This is kind of a primetime game. It's going to be a 7:15 Eastern game, 6:15 Central Time game, in front of 104,000 people. But Alabama travels pretty well. I mean, go back to that Vanderbilt game. That crowd almost felt like 75% Alabama. If you go back, watch highlights of that, feels like 75% Alabama. So there will be a plethora of Alabama fans there because they love to travel watching football. Doesn't matter where it is. This game could be played in Germany, or it could be played in France, or it could be played in London. You guarantee that at least 25% of that crowd will be Alabama fans. But I'm picking Alabama to dominate this game. Maybe Texas can keep it close with that home crowd. Maybe we'll see something like the first half of the two games the last 2 years, where Texas made it close. Even Texas had a lead in the third quarter in the game last year. But I think Alabama just cruises in the end. Texas got no defense, despite having the Chief and John Chase as the defensive coordinator. Just, nah. Alabama's probably going to drop like 70 on these guys. Considering they dropped 6-6 against Ole Miss, I'm thinking Alabama drops something like 70. Number 9, Wisconsin versus Nebraska. Now this is the matchup I've been looking forward to talk about for weeks now. I've just gotten so excited, and I finally get to talk about Nebraska again. I'm just so excited. I don't want to waste any more time, so let's go. Wisconsin has been challenged against North. They've been challenged a lot this year, especially against Northwestern in the first half of last week's game, and defensively in the fourth quarter. In fact, I got a text message today. And he said, either Nebraska will beat Wisconsin Saturday or Ohio State next Saturday. Mike Riley teams always seem to beat a team they shouldn't and loses one they should. So this person's thinking they beat Wisconsin this week, but lose somebody like Purdue. And I find this really interesting. This is honestly an interesting point, because back in 2015, Nebraska was a 5-7 team. Well, they weren't even positioned to make it to a bowl game, but a win against Michigan State at home is what put them in a bowl game because of the academic progress rate. So what this is saying is, there's a shot Nebraska has, and here's what Nebraska's got going for them. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but I know it's something over 20. At least I think it is. That Nebraska has won over 20 plus straight games at home at night. That's the one stat Nebraska's got going for them. However, here's one stat that's not working out for Nebraska. And it's not going to work out for Nebraska if we see this consistent problem. Tanner Lee has 9 interceptions this year. That is leading the NCAA in quarterbacks in throwing interceptions. Let me say that again. Tanner Lee has thrown 9 interceptions this year. That is the most in college football. So if Wisconsin can force some turnovers, they can eliminate the running game of Mikael Wilbon and Divino Zigbo. They can eliminate that running game. It's going to be a long night for Nebraska. If they have to rely on Tanner Lee to win the game, Nebraska ain't going to win. And here's the sad truth. I see Wisconsin just shutting down this running game, especially with Tanner Lee. If they have to force him to win the game, I'm just not sure. Because it seems as if, in the rare Nebraska film that I've watched, it seems he's only targeting Stanley Morgan. So if Stanley Morgan is contained in the receiving game, I think it's going to be a long night for Nebraska. I think Wisconsin wins by 14 points. A little bit closer than what probably Nebraska fans would think themselves, and what the experts would think. But there is a chance Nebraska can win, but I think it's less than 5%. And that one statistic of Nebraska winning all these consecutive night home games, that's the only thing that's working for them. In fact, this is honestly going to dictate the coaching future of Mike Riley in Nebraska. I think this game and the game next week, those are going to be the two games that dictates whether Nebraska moves on with Mike Riley next year. Anyway, next matchup, Michigan State versus number 7 Michigan. Now, I see this game being heavily defensive. I don't see a lot of offense in this game. In fact, if this was a high-scoring game, I'd be surprised. I'm thinking we're going to see something like 20-13 or 20-14, but I'm giving the edge to Michigan because Michigan has statistically the best defense in college football. They're number 1 in total defense. Michigan State's number 5 in total defense. They're either 4 or 5. I can't remember the top of my head. I should have wrote it down, but I did not. But I know that both these defenses are top 5 in college football in total defense so far. And I'm thinking this is going to be a highly defensive game. I think we're going to see a lot of running in this game. I don't think we're going to see a lot of passing in this game. But I'm giving the edge to Michigan, especially being in the big house in the nighttime. I think that's one of the most hostile environments in the Big Ten at night. Sorry, fans at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska. But still, it's the truth. Michigan Stadium can hold about 110,000 people. That's why I'm picking the Wolverines to win, but only 20-13. I think it's low scoring from start to finish. Next we have number 11 Washington State versus Oregon. Now Washington is coming off a big victory against USC last Friday night, but the question is, how emotional are they still about that victory? Are they still celebrating that, or are they focusing on Oregon? Because there's a lot of factors that come in with teams after they win a big game. They seem to struggle the next game. Kind of a different scenario somewhere else, but we'll get to that in a second. I think this is going to be a highly offensive matchup. Both these offenses are great lethal offenses. Offenses that can score at will. In fact, it could easily be 1:30 in the morning when this game gets over with based on how these offenses can score. But I think Washington gets the victory. I just feel like the difference in this matchup is the fact that it's been reported that Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert broke his collarbone in last week's game. I think that's the difference again. I think the Washington State Cougars win this game. Oregon may have the best offense statistically in college football right now, but if they can't play Justin Herbert, which it looks like they're not going to, with a broken collarbone, I'm giving the edge to Washington State. But I feel like it's going to be close to what we think. Oregon got blown up by Washington last year, 70-21, I think it was. When everybody thought that Oregon would have a chance to beat Washington. This may be Washington State, but I don't see this being a blowout at all. I see this, I could say it depends on how Oregon does offensively without Justin Herbert at QB, who they move on to. That could be the question. But I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere between 13 and 17. It's not going to be some ugly blowout. I think Oregon keeps it close a bit. I think that home crowd in Eugene Stadium, or Austin Stadium in Eugene, I think it's going to be closer than what people think. On to the game of the week. Number 23 West Virginia versus number 8 TCU. This is going to be a great game. Both these offenses, top 5 in total offense in college football. These are some top offensive teams. West Virginia TCU, Big 12 matchup. This could easily dictate who gets an edge in the Big 12. Because the Big 12 is a round-robin conference. That's why the Big 12 is kind of my favorite conference to watch. In fact, I'll rank the conferences in the comment section if somebody asks me to. But I like watching the Big 12 because it's offense. It's really offensive heavy. And I kind of love points, but I also love some defense too. I love teams that have some defense and offense. And that's what TCU's got. TCU's defense forced some turnovers against Oklahoma State just 2 weeks ago. And I think I'm really sold on TCU's defense right now. I think TCU wins this game. I think it's going to be by double digits. I'm thinking TCU wins by 13 points. Something similar to when they beat Oklahoma State on the road. And I think this is going to be a convincing win by TCU. It's going to be a huge stamp on their resume. I think TCU might move into the top 5 depending on how well they do. In fact, if TCU wins this game, they'll go to at least number 6. Regardless of what happens with Michigan State, or any other games that are ahead of them. I think TCU will really move up in the rankings. Regardless. If they win, they'll move up regardless of how Michigan or Penn State or Georgia do. I think they'll still move up, probably to 6 or 7. And finally, here's some bonus picks: Kansas State versus Texas. I'm just do this very quickly. I'm picking Kansas State over Texas as one of the bonus games. I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure. I'm not sold on Texas at all right now because we don't know what Texas team is going to show up. The team that played Maryland or the team that came out and played USC. And plus, is Texas too looking forward? Are they looking too ahead? Because next week it's the Red River rivalry when they play the Oklahoma Sooners. That's a huge question factor. Plus, I just think Kansas State's going to be a surprise team when we get toward the end of the year. I've been saying that for ever since preseason started, or the preseason talks during that time. But I think I'm kind of sold on Kansas State right now because I'm not sure what kind of Texas team's going to. I'm more sold on Kansas State than I am Texas. I kind of know what to expect out of Kansas State, but not Texas, not as much. Because Texas is one of the most inconsistent teams in the Big 12, if not in all of college football. Next bonus matchup, Stanford versus Utah. They're quietly undefeated right now. Nobody's talking about them right now because they haven't played many competitive teams. But Utah's got a gauntlet ahead. If there's even a chance, hypothetically, that Utah makes the college football playoff, it's going to be a tall order. Because they've got big teams coming up, and I just feel like Utah hasn't played real competition yet. I'm going with Stanford because I feel like Stanford's got momentum ever since that upset loss against San Diego State. I just feel like Stanford's got momentum right now, especially with running back Bryce Love, who is number one, who's leading college football in rushing yards with 1,088 rushing yards through 5 games this year. He'd be leading the Heisman race if Stanford didn't have 2 losses. Anyway, those are my picks this week. Like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts on my picks down below. I'm sorry this is so long. I just feel like this is the best week of college football there's been ever since week 1 and 2. Matchup-wise, at least. A lot of these games can go either way. Comment your thoughts down below. Again, thank you for everyone that's watched the whole video of this. It means a lot. I'll timestamp the games. I'm going to listen to it myself before I upload it. I'm going to leave timestamps in the comment section, in the description box below, on which games that you're kind of looking forward to hearing my analysis on. I'll put it in there so you can just go to that part. Anyway, thank you for watching. Have a great night, everybody.